Hi, everyone. This is the Leadership with Heart podcast, and this is Heather Younger, your host. Employee experience is powered by emotions. Managers and or leaders within organizations get to choose which emotions they unleash from within the people they lead. Leaders, meaning supervisors or above in an organization, drive much of the positive or negative emotions by their actions or inactions, their words, or what they fail to say. When a manager chooses their words and their actions carefully, they exhibit great emotional intelligence. These managers are often thought of as leaders who care, or as I like to call them, leaders with heart. This special brand of leader drives engagement and loyalty simply by being themselves. Are these leaders perfect? Absolutely not. It is in their awareness and sharing of some of their imperfections that we realize their true brilliance. In this podcast, I ask you to see yourself in the stories my guests tell about times when they were not the best versions of themselves, but how they used their hearts to guide them to a deeper connection with their team and heightened leadership prowess. Before we move on and you hear the show today, I want to make a special request of you. I would like this podcast to remain successful and to increase the amount of listeners and people who are downloading it. And in order to do that, I need to get more reviews. So, for anybody who is a listener, and if you love the show, please go and do a 5-star rating and write a review anywhere you listen. And then screenshot that. If you screenshot that and you email me at heather@customerfanatics.com, heather@customerfanatics.com, then in the next show, I will give a kudos to you for doing so, because I actually am very appreciative of anybody who does write those reviews. And if you already have done so, thank you very much. Thank you for joining this show and enjoy this one. Hi there, everybody. This is Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast. And today I'm really thrilled to have Brent Stockwell on the phone with me today. He was referred to me by one of my favorite people on this planet, Nick Kittle. And it was because I asked Nick, I said, listen, I'm looking for leaders more in the government space, local government, that are leaders of the heart. And that means more emotionally intelligent leaders. And so, Brent, that's why you're here.
Great. I'm glad to be here.
So where are you right now anyway in your leadership journey?
Well, Heather, just this last week, I got in the mail my 20th year of service award from the International City County Management Association, which means, according to their records, I've been doing local government management for 20 years now. And so where that kind of places me along my leadership journey is, I feel at times that I've kind of learned as much as I have capacity to learn right now. And so I want to spend as much time as possible as really passing that on to others and really kind of developing leaders that are earlier in their leadership journey and helping them to be as successful as possible.
That's good. Well, I think we need more people like that really have that as a focus, because if we're not passing it on, it just dies. And so then your legacy actually lives on the more you pass it on, and people don't realize that. Sometimes they become short-sighted, right? But you aren't that way. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been a great beneficiary of other leaders and mentors throughout my life that have taken the time to invest in my life and help and care about me and help me be successful. And so, when I'm at this stage of life and this stage of my leadership journey, I really kind of feel compelled and feel it's like my honor to pass it along. And so I rarely turn down, I can't even think of a time I've turned down someone that's reached out to me and asked me for coaching or mentoring, or just wanted to come in and meet with me to talk about my career and what they want to do and where they want to go with that. So I'm happy to be able to do that.
That's awesome. Well, just keep passing along, and hopefully people will emulate you, because we need more leaders like you for sure. So, so where does your drive to lead come from? I'm curious to know. Some people, I get different answers to this. And again, there's no right answer. It's just, where does your drive to lead? What is it that makes you want to lead others?
Well, I think it's important to understand that. I'll give you a couple stories on that, but let me start out with what my purpose statement is. So I'm one of those folks that has taken the time to really kind of think about very critically and really cut to the core of who I am so that I can figure out what I need to be doing and what I need to not be doing. So my purpose statement is this: I communicate clearly, think strategically, and provide excellent response. I serve with compassion, advocate for others, and connect people with resources to help them succeed. So you really hear those heart components in there, I hope. Mm-hmm. There's really four key components in there: the clear communicator, the strategic thinker, the compassionate advocate, and the resource connector. And so as I'm making decisions, I'm thinking about, is this an opportunity for me to be a resource connector? Is this a cry for help? Is this something where I need to be a compassionate advocate? Is this a role that needs strategic thinking, or is this an opportunity for me to come in and help with clear communication? And to help me, keep these in front of me at all times, when I sit at my desk, above my monitor is the purpose statement. To the right of my monitor is our organization's strategic plan, our strategic goals, and our key objectives to always keep me thinking proactively and focusing on what needs to be done, what's important to be done, rather than just getting embroiled like we all have the tendency to do and being reactive, the problem of the day, the fire that needs to be put out. And then to the left of my screen, I also have the kind of the summary of those 4 points. And so, surrounded while I'm doing work, I'm so intentional. I've surrounded my work environment with those things to continue to focus on that. Now, where does that come from? It comes from two things in particular. First of all, I'm an adopted kid. So it's a part of my identity. I get reminded of it every time I go to the doctor and they ask me about my family history. I have to, bring that back. I don't have a family history. I wasn't born into my family, but I became a part of my family. And that's how we are in most organizations. We become part of it. That's why kind of the onboarding process is so critical. It's why leadership is so critical. It's why it's so important to help people grow into what they want to become. Just as parents do in families, we need to have that love and care for organizations to help people that we work with to be successful. So that background's where that kind of compassionate advocate passion was birthed. Also, another thing that's really critical in my leadership development, my leadership style that really I think helps me be a leader with heart, is that I was hired in my first 4 jobs in local government. I was hired by and worked for successful female leaders, for Cheryl, for Dina, for Tanya, and for Jan. And I'm thankful for that opportunity. It shaped me, and it made me a stronger, more adaptive, more emotionally intelligent leader. And it's also why I'm committed to more women in leadership roles, and I think we would have better and stronger organizations as a result. And so I really work with that passion, and that comes into who I am. And those both those things have really impacted my leadership style, along with other things.
Awesome. Now, so how do you think then, based upon that purpose statement, how do you think that your people would describe you as a leader? How would they describe you?
So remember I told you in that purpose statement that I provide excellent response. So one of the things that I regularly get praised for by people that work for me is they really appreciate my response. I've been really influenced by the inside-out coaching methodology. I don't know how familiar you might be with that. Alan Fine is the guy that wrote the book on that, does training on that. One of the concepts he talks about in that book is that performance equals capacity minus interference. Performance equals capacity minus interference. So what I see one of my key roles as a leader, and what I think people would say about me is that my role is to help remove interference, because once that interference is removed, that, along with their capacity, results in higher performance. So I had seen other leaders be kind of the roadblocks in their staff in my past success, and I said, I don't want to be that way. The other thing that I have heard said from people that I lead is that they really appreciate my endeavors to understand the challenges that are facing them in their unique roles, and to really get in there and understand that. And having a leader, a boss, a supervisor that understands you, where you're coming from, what challenges you're facing, and is helping you actively to kind of remove that interference, I think is really important. So, so I think they'd also say that the servant leadership piece comes into play. I tell them, and they would see that I'm not ever going to ask someone to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. So I'm not trying to push off work on other people. I'm trying to find the best person to do the work. And if that's me, I'll do it. If it's someone else, I'll have them do it. And if it's something that I could do, but they need to have the opportunity to be able to do, I'm going to give them the opportunity to do that, and I'm going to support them in that.
Wow. It's kind of all of that. I mean, I'm listening to that, and one of the things that pops out to me is I'm writing a book, and it's based upon the podcast, so many of you will be in that book, some little pieces of things that you say, but this idea of that leader, I notice there's some interesting differences between a leader who has faced adversity in their past, because there are several of those that have been on the show, they tell their story, and then how they show up in the workplace with the people they lead. And so that idea of the compassionate advocacy, just that heightened awareness of like, you are kind of going about filling the gaps that you had as a child. And you're doing that for the people inside the workplace who also have many of those gaps. And so people may say, well, he's not anyone's father or dad. Okay, that's true. However, the role that you play as a leader, particularly a senior leader as you are, people look to you for removing obstacles, for opening up doors, to providing access and opportunities for them to grow and to be their best selves. And so I would say that I can see a direct correlation between how the adversity impacted you in a way, and you could say it's an adversity or not, but and people will see that. Okay, like you said, I don't have a childhood history, and you said it so nonchalant, but people would say, well, wow, that's kind of powerful. Okay, and now you're able to say, how do I translate that into my leadership right now? I mean, this is like super powerful right now. This is, people are listening and they've got to be like, okay, I'm connecting some dots here. This is good stuff, Brent. So I appreciate you being upfront about all of that. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, so
I think our key responsibility as a leader is to model the way. One of our key responsibilities is to model the way, and I think that in modeling the way, I think we need to do that in how we're successful and the good things that we do. But I think we also need to do that when we have tough times and when we're not, successful. I like to talk with people about kind of our best selves and our worst selves. And everybody has kind of a best self when they're having their ideal day and when they're in the zone and they're kind of doing things that they're really kind of perfectly ideally suited today. I mean, we all know that when we feel that, when we're our best selves. I'm a pretty hypercritical person of my own self. I can't ever do anything without finding everything wrong in it. And I probably need to work through that. But so I'm also hyper aware when I'm my worst self. And, let me tell you about a time when, I was that way. So I remember very vividly a meeting that I had across the street in one of the other buildings with a group of employees that were working on a planning project. And the project involved a decision right at the core of the project that I was not happy about. I thought it was the wrong decision. I thought it kind of undercut the policy direction that we had. One of our key partners, they didn't like the decision, and I was really upset with it. And I took it out way too harshly, in my opinion, on a junior staff member that was in that meeting. And I think, as I recall, this was a meeting that was on Friday, and I went home and I just, was beating myself up about it over the weekend. So, as I do whenever I have a situation where I feel like I'm not my best self in my relationships with others, I went to his office and asked him if we could talk, and I apologized personally to him. And I didn't just stop there. I apologized to his boss's boss for how I had treated him, and I apologized to his boss for how he treated him. I also went back and talked to everybody else that had been in the room in that meeting and made it very clear that, while I had the right to disagree about the decision, I didn't have the right to be rude about it or, take it out on this employee. I really wanted to make it clear that how I had behaved was not acceptable, that I was truly sorry, and that I would do better moving forward. Interestingly, and this is often the case with those of us that are self-aware or even hyper self-aware, he didn't even think that what I had said had really been out of line. But I think that's what a leader with heart does, is they take responsibility for their actions and they do everything in their power to make it right. And that involves making it right with people and talking to them. And that means admitting when you're wrong. Now, thankfully, I'm in a role where I can admit that I'm wrong, and it doesn't have adverse consequences for me. I know not everybody is in that situation, but if you are in a situation where you can kind of freely admit that and learn from that and grow from that and work with your team to grow from that, I think it's enormously powerful and important to do so.
How can you bring up a good point? How can leaders, other people that might be listening that may have the ability to make the workplace more psychologically safe, or people can bring up adverse, conversations that are not necessarily, straight line or positive, but they really are providing an area of opportunity for another leader, for another coworker. How does a leader provide that environment? Like you just said, you brought up a point that is so true, that not everybody has the ability to just openly admit mistakes, go out and do exactly what you did. I mean, they can, but the reaction or the retribution could be in place, right? Versus what might happen with you. How would we do that? How would you, as a leader, create the environment that makes it so that people at all levels of the organization can do what you did?
Well, I'm not sure, but I will say that one way that I've tried to do that is to try and create that safe environment. So after someone has, done a presentation or led a meeting, or to sit down together and kind of talk about how do you feel about that? Because a lot of times we know that we're hypercritical and really self-aware, and we forget that other people are feeling the same way. And so to create that environment where others can be open about how they felt, what they felt went well, what they felt could have gone better, and helping people, understand and create this environment, through your own modeling where failure truly isn't fatal is really important. Now, I mean, the sad thing is there are times where failure is fatal, and there are times when organizations have to make those decisions. But I think the more, I think the only word I can really think to describe this is the more grace or even mercy you can extend to other people to give them a chance to grow. People don't learn and grow just from doing things right. We also learn and grow from doing things wrong. And if we never give people the opportunity to do things wrong, they're not going to grow. And so you've got to think about it and make a leadership decision. Do you want people that are growing and getting better, or do you want an organization that's, staying stagnant and doesn't give people the opportunity to grow? And I think so. I've got to have that commitment to stand up for other people, to give them the opportunities to succeed, and also give them the opportunities to fail. And I think that's part of an organizational culture. One thing that's really important that our organization has done for a very long time is to have a set of employee values that you really you live by, you evaluate by, you reward success by, that are meaningful. When you see something going well, you use the employee values to say why they're doing something going well. When you see something not going well, you say, was that an opportunity to show caring and passion for others? Or is this an opportunity for us to really learn and grow continuously? Or is this an opportunity for us to collaborate as a team? And to talk about those things using those types of words as a leader also helps create that environment, I think. And I've been the beneficiary of having other leaders in our organization do that. I've been with this organization for 18 years in January. And so I've seen a lot of people, before me while I was coming up in leadership, and now that I've been in leadership, see that and model that. And they model a way for me to do that as well. And so, I'm thankful for that heritage and that background that they've given to me, and I want to pass that along to others.
Love it. So for those who are listening right now, you've given a lot of good stuff here. What might be a couple of really good pearls of wisdom, whether in the form of stories and then, lessons or something that you can leave them with that gets them through their day, whether they're stuck, whether they're just looking for some more energy or some more motivation? I'd love to hear that.
Some of these, pearls of wisdom, let me talk about a couple things. So one of the things, I think that being a leader with heart means that you're a person that's approachable. And one of the best compliments I've ever received was that when someone said that I epitomize leadership because I constantly lift up my peers and colleagues with encouragement, resources, and kindness. And, I think probably if you were to search my computer and my emails, probably the most prevalent phrase I use outside my signature line is that I hope that this is helpful. And taking an approach of helpfulness and approachability, I think, is really important. I think that being a leader with heart makes you passionate. And you have to be really passionate about your employees, about your organization, about the people, and in local government, about the community that you serve. And one of the ways that I did that recently was back last spring, we entered a contest to name one of our parks, the McCormick-Stillman Railroad Park, as the best park in America. And this is just a great 40 acres right in the heart of our community where there's everything that could be train themed is train themed. It's great for kids, for adults. There's a model railroad museum. There's a carousel. There's an ice cream shop. There's ramadas. There's concerts in the summer. There's everything that you could really want in a park. And so we went all in on this, and we went through a number of rounds of competition to try and get this the best park. And to do that, I would go at the end of each day or at the beginning of each day, I would go out to the park and I would look for an employee or someone that was volunteering at the park and have them tell me a story. I'd video record them on my phone. I'd ask them if it was okay to post on social media. I would, take selfies with us. I would share those short stories. And I was going day after day after day for a couple weeks. One part of the contest was to do. You got a credit for every Instagram photo you did, and during that time, I did 500 plus posts over that time period. I had like 3 Instagram posts before this. I had 500 posts, picture after picture with people and telling the story of the park, all kind of demonstrating that passion and allowing that to become contagious as well. So finding something that you can be passionate about that helps kind of share some particular point of pride in your organization or with an employee or your community is a great thing. The other thing that I think is really important is being a leader with heart also makes you willing to share. So I really kind of adopted an open source philosophy, and I can do this because I'm in local government. We can really kind of open source when we do share it freely. My website has all the training I've ever done, all the resources that are out there, anything that we do, we just share freely. I also, probably another thing that comes with being a leader with heart is it's really hard for you to say no. So I probably should say no a lot more than I do, but this coupled with that, being willing to share is regularly sharing what I've learned with others, being a trainer inside and outside our organization, being willing to, serve as a webinar or podcast guest or a training guest to share what we're doing and what we've learned from that. We're really fortunate here at the City of Scottsdale because we have a really good set of resources because of the community dynamics of our community, and plus we have millions of visitors coming here each year. So Scottsdale is a kind of a known commodity as far as the city is concerned. So that makes that gives us an opportunity to share about the things that we're doing. And so that coupled with a leader with heart means that you're kind of really not just kind of hoarding that for yourself or trying to get the most out of it for yourself, but you're opening up your hands and your arms and saying, hey, let me share this with you. It's better if we all get better.
I love that. And I think definitely governments far and wide should absolutely be doing that. But I mean, you can learn so much from private sector. They can learn so much from you. I've worked in local government here in Adams County. It's I know Nick. And so I completely know how we kind of learn from both sides. It's like a bi-directional learning process. So I appreciate your philosophy there. This is good. So, in the end, be approachable, be real and authentic with your people, be passionate about the work that you're doing, making sure that you're open to share. And even though you might say no, sometimes it's good to be the yes man too, because then people know that you are open and then you're more relatable, because often leaders just aren't. So those are some very good nuggets. I really appreciate you leaving those with us. And now anybody listening in, if you received a lot of value, as I was writing down a lot what Brent was saying, please do make sure you share this show, share the podcast out when it is live. And then also don't forget that you want to write a review, go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you might listen, because that review then moves us up in the algorithm competing against the other leadership podcasts. I think there's something special here. Right? This is not me. This is me facilitating discussions with amazing leaders, but just all the ways they lead well. and we can all learn from it. So please do that. And thank you so much, Brent. This has been amazing. I appreciate you coming on here.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be able to be on the podcast and share a little bit about what I've learned.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. You can grab the show notes by visiting customerfanatics.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.